Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another session with Mr. Smith. And class is now beginning. So take your seats and let's go. All right, so what we got here, I found this little beaut. And let's read it a little bit here. It says, Canton, that's Canton, Ohio, for those of you that don't know. It's in the United States. Canton McKinley High School football player says he was forced to eat pork against religious beliefs. A McKinley High School football player's family plans to sue the Canton City School District because they say McKinley head football coach Marcus Watley and 7 assistant coaches forced the player to eat pork against his religious beliefs. The player's father, Kenny Walker, and uncle Telly May joined attorney Ed Gilbert this Tuesday morning. This article was June 1st. Tuesday morning to announce their intentions of filing the lawsuit that accuses the district of violating the students' First Amendment rights. The Canton Repository, this is the paper, has agreed not to name the 17-year-old player. Gilbert, who's the lawyer, speaking on behalf of the family, said the school district violated the player's constitutional rights when the coaches punished him on May 24th after he missed a voluntary May 20th strengthening and conditioning practice because he had to nurse a right shoulder injury he received during a previous practice. Okay, so it was a voluntary practice, and the coaches decided to punish him for not showing up. Now, there's a problem right there. That's like saying, oh, you don't have to come to my party, and then when somebody doesn't come to your party, they hate you for it. And they punish you. I mean, what is going on here? You know, I'm telling you, and I know the high school game quite well. You got to watch out for some of these coaches that get hired. Right? They're not, you can't punish somebody for not showing up to a voluntary strengthening and conditioning practice. It's voluntary. Hello? My gosh. Anyway, let's read on. Gilbert said the player told the coach at least 10 times that he did not eat pork because he and his families are members of the Hebrew Israeli religious faith. Okay, it's not Israeli, by the way. It's Hebrew Israelite religious faith. And if you have not heard of the Hebrew Israelites and the various churches and groups that are popping up and calling themselves Hebrew Israelites, you really should check it out. Okay? And that's mainly that's one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up. Okay? Anyway, we're going to talk about that on down the line here. Okay, Hebrew Israeli. No, Hebrew Israelite. They really, the Hebrew Israelite churches and groups have nothing to do with Israelis. Two totally different things. Anyway, let's read on. So he did not eat pork because he and his family are members of the Israelite religious faith, which strictly forbids the consumption of pork or pork residue. Gilbert said all of the coaches should have known the player didn't eat pork because he has been present during previous player meals. Okay, so the coach Watley was forcing this student to eat a whole pepperoni pizza, which is gluttony, which is unhealthy, which is completely, it's bullying to the nth degree. When an adult coach tries to shame, and that's very interesting, shame this player and embarrass him in front of everybody. What happened to doing 50 push-ups? A pepperoni pizza. Anyway, Quote, he said Watley, which was the coach, allowed the player to remove the pepperoni and some of the cheese from the pizza, but residue from the pork clearly remained. If the player refused to eat the pizza, Gilbert said the child was told that his teammates would be forced to perform additional drills, and, quote, there was a question of whether he would be able to stay on the team, unquote. Okay, there's something. This coach doing this to this boy has nothing. It's not questioning whether he would be able to stay on the team. It's clearly an attempt to shame this boy for his beliefs. And I can tell you right now, if that boy was Jewish, because a lot of Jewish people don't eat pork, that coach wouldn't even dared to do this, because the Jewish, like ADL, the Jewish groups would have had that guy burned at a stake. Not to mention, what about the Muslims? Muslims don't eat pork. So this coach had the absolute audacity, because he thought Hebrew Israelites are just such a joke and they won't do anything, that he forced them to eat pork. Okay, I can tell you right now, there's a much deeper spiritual issue here that we won't get into in this one, but you guys should think about that. Okay. Anyway, let's read on here. While eating the pizza, the assistant coaches and the player's teammates were yelling at the player, said Gilbert, who added that the child is undergoing psychological counseling. Okay, so it was gang bullying on this guy. Walker said his son expressed anger, frustration, hurt, and felt ostracized. Well, no kidding. Walker, who said his family hasn't eaten pork since 2013, said he too is upset. Anyway, there's more. You can read more with this story, but this story made ESPN news, so it's not a small little incident. Let's read the ESPN article, shall we? Okay, here's the ESPN article. It's actually not on the screen, but I'm going to read it for you guys. That's 3 days later on June 4th. It says, it's titled, Ohio High School Football Coaches Fired After Player Says He Was Forced to Eat Pork. The head football coach at an Ohio high school and 6 other coaches there have been ousted after a football player said he was forced to eat pork in violation of his religious beliefs for missing a, again, voluntary workout. Absolutely. Justice is served. Who the blank does a head football coach of a high school think he is? That he's so damned special that he can force some kid to eat something against his religious beliefs. Unfreaking believable. And like I said, this guy, the thing that really irritates me is that if this coach would have never tried this on a Jewish kid or a Muslim kid that said he didn't eat pork. Oh my gosh. And then the 6 other coaches, absolutely. You got to understand, these a lot of these coaches have a hive mindset, man. And I mean, it's just appalling that a high school, let me remind you, a high school head football coach. I could have become a football coach in high school. I never even played football. Give me a freaking break. The audacity and arrogance of some people, it's just amazing. And they got what they deserved. So, hey, sometimes our justice system does work. But let's read on. The Canton City Board of Education voted unanimously Thursday to not renew the coaching contracts of Canton McKinley head football coach Marcus Watley, blah, 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 2 of assistants. All right. So this was let's read on. A lawyer for the teen player's family has announced plans to sue the school district. The player and his family are members of the Hebrew Israelite. They got it right on ESPN. They called it Israelite religious faith and do not eat pork. Let me tell you something about pork while we're on the subject. I don't eat pork either. I stopped eating pork right around 2014. And I can tell you my health has improved tremendously. Tremendously. Now, why do the Hebrew Israelites not eat pork? Because it's in the Bible. It's in the Torah. There's certain animals that God says you can eat, and certain animals God says you can't eat. And why do you not eat the animals that He says don't eat? Because they're unhealthy. Do you think the Most High God's just doing it to be a jerk or controlling? No, He's doing it because it's He created these animals. He created all the molecules and the atoms. I think He knows what's best for your body. It's not a tyrannical thing. It's a health thing. Do you know a pork, first of all, pigs eat anything. They eat anything. You can throw human body parts in a pig pen and they will eat human flesh. Whatever you throw in there, they'll eat. They'll eat poop. They'll eat whatever. That's their function, their garbage disposals. We really shouldn't be eating them. And it's interesting that our society just keeps pushing pork on us. Do you notice when you go to especially fast food restaurants, every burger has bacon on it. You can't get away from it. There's even that episode of The Office, and I love The Office. It's a great show. But man, The Office is programming your mind just like in any other TV show. Just because it's a good show doesn't mean it doesn't program you. Right? And there's that episode where Michael Scott burned his foot on the George Foreman grill. Those of you guys that are office heads, you'll know what I'm talking about. But there's a line in there where he says, I put the George Foreman grill next to my bed in the morning, and I put 7 strips of bacon on it, and then I time it so that it turns on, and it starts cooking the bacon in the morning. And when I wake up, I've got hot sizzling bacon to eat. And then Michael Scott says, and it's good for me. He has to mention that pork is good, that bacon is good for him. Lie. That is a lie. I love The Office. I love that show, but they're lying to you with that script writing. Bacon is not good for you. Okay, it's not. You want to know why there's so many people that have colon cancer and stomach cancers these days? That's one of the reasons. Now, there are other animals you're not supposed to eat either in the Bible. Okay, because they're toxic to eat. Okay, maybe I'll put that up. I did an old lesson on the dietary laws in the Bible. Now, if you guys want to eat pork, eat pork. That's your business. But it is a health thing. Okay? You should only eat an animal that eats only grass or grain. And I'm talking about animals on the land. So I highly recommend you look at the packaging for beef and chicken and make sure it says vegetarian fed. Okay? Because some of these cattle ranchers and some of these chicken farmers are not feeding their animals with healthy grass or grain. So you got to watch that. And it does make a difference. And just try it out. Try switching your diet. I recommend it, but that's up to you, of course. Let's get back to the story here. Okay, let's be fair here. Okay, so it says District Superintendent Jeff Talbert said surveillance video gave administrators the information they needed to warrant their recommendations to the board. Okay, so these guys were caught red-handed. However, he declined to provide details of what happened and said the video would not be publicly released due to federal student privacy regulations. Boy, they release all kinds of other stuff. That's very suspect right there. Anyway, let's move on. Peter Patakos, an attorney retained by Watley, Watley's the football coach, said details of the event were exaggerated and parts are false. His statements were supported by 5 football players who attended the school board meeting in support of the 8 coaches. Only 5? Wow, a high school football team has about 25 members. Patakos said the student said the player could have left at any time, adding that Watley offered the team chicken nuggets instead of pepperoni pizza. All right, yeah, he could have left at any time, meaning getting kicked off the team possibly. And then, of course, that psychological guilting that he would, if he didn't eat, the other players would have to do all kinds of extra exercises. Yeah, come on. Watley offered the team chicken nuggets instead of pepperoni pizza. Oh, gee. It doesn't, you're still forcing the student to eat, and you're punishing him and shaming him for something that he did not deserve in any way, shape, or form to be punished or shamed. This sounds like initiation rituals that they do in humiliation rituals that they do in Masonry and fraternities and sororities. Because I want so badly to get in that club, I'm going to degrade myself for you, sir. Ugh. Anyway, let's read on before I get off topic here. Oh, and Patakos blamed an assistant coach. Okay, so now they're this lawyer's he's blaming an assistant coach. So this defense lawyer is still admitting that they did this to this kid. Oh my gosh. Talbert disputed the claims about the investigation, saying the video. Oh, let me rephrase that. Patakos blamed an assistant coach who he did not name for inflaming the situation by reporting an exaggerated version to administrators and the player's family. But they have it on videotape. And it doesn't matter. It should have never happened at all. And these some of these people, like this high school coach, the audacity of him to think he can get away with this. And just unbelievable. These are kids that have fathers. And the fathers teach them a certain way. You cannot, believe me, I know the high school game. You're not supposed to go against what the parents want. Jeez. Talbert disputed the claims about the investigation, saying the video gave them enough information to determine that the coaches acted inappropriately. No duh. All right. So now let's look at another newspaper clipping on this, because it didn't go away there. Okay, here's another article. A continuation of the ESPN article, if you will. And about the incident with the high school Hebrew Israelite football player. And look at the head coach there, Marcus Watley. He's a black man. And of course the player was a black kid or a young man. So, this is not a racial issue, and if you listen to my man Kwame Brown, who is on fire in the YouTube community right now, and he's calling out other black men that are in high positions, and he's calling them out for disrespecting other black men. And he's really onto something. And I mean, it goes back to, slavery times, and, this is something that I think needs to be addressed. And, this type of bullying and shaming tactics, this happens with, in the white community as well. I mean, I've experienced it, where you have men in positions of power who are straight up biatches, who abuse their power and they just love to shame and manipulate people. But again, whether this coach was black, white, pink, whatever, he would never, ever, ever do this to a Jewish boy or a Muslim boy or a Seventh Day, maybe, or Seventh Day Adventist boy that didn't eat pork. So he just felt he could get away with it with a Hebrew Israelite. That's the interesting thing, and it's just something to think about. How this fool thought he could get away with it. And maybe 20, 30 years ago, maybe 20 years ago he could get away with it, but not anymore. Anyway, but here, okay, so that's one reason why I really wanted to read this article, all right? But let's read on. Let's read this article, and there's some other things I want to talk about. All right, let's see. It says, quote, "They are not part of mainstream Judaism nor part of mainline Christianity," he said, referring to Hebrew Israelites. "They are a sect that believes that blacks are descendants of the Hebrews that are mentioned in the Bible. The Anti-Defamation League, which is a Jewish organization, right, says this of the religion. Black Hebrew Israelites believe they are members of the 12 tribes based on biblical interpretation that teaches them that their population will be spread across the globe, which they call the diaspora, which they tie to the transatlantic slave trade." Okay, now if you read Deuteronomy chapter 28, especially verses 64 to 68, yes, it actually does, it explains this, that the transatlantic slave trade would be Israelites. Okay? Now, here's the thing that interests me, and somebody brought up, is why is this article going to the Anti-Defamation League to explain this guy's faith? They're not the authority over this of Hebrew Israelites. They're not. Why don't you go to the church, the Hebrew Israelite church that this young man and his family belong to? And I know what church they belong to. It's called Gathering of Christ Church, and you can check them out on gatheringofchrist.org if you want to see what they're all about. Okay, so I find it very interesting that they won't even interview the family or the church or the elders of this church to explain what their church is all about. They go to the Anti-Defamation League to talk about it. That's like if I mean, can you imagine if it was the other way around and it was a Jewish boy that was being bullied into eating pork, and this article came out? They wouldn't go to the Catholics to explain what Jewish people believe. Are you kidding me? This is really disrespectful to the Hebrew Israelites. I just find that interesting. Anyway, let's read on. Okay, so let's read on here. It says BHI. They're getting the alphabet soup ready for, I guess BHI stands for Black Hebrew Israelites. Okay, it shouldn't be called Black Hebrew Israelites, just Hebrew Israelites, because I know for a fact that a lot of the Hebrew Israelites in, for example, GOC, Gathering of Christ Church, and you should also check out Pastor Dowell. He has a ministry called Straightaway Ministry, and that's an Israelite church. Check out those two groups. It might change your mind about what Hebrew Israelites are all about. Now, I know these two churches, they follow the Old Testament and New Testament to a T. All right. But let's see what it says here. It says, BHI, Black Hebrew Israelites, presents slavery, racism, incarceration, and other social ills as divine punishments for disobedience that can only be cured through Black Hebrew Israelite ideology. What they really should be saying here is the Bible. Okay. Now, here's the next thing. Retired Temple Israel Rabbi John Adlan. So now they bring a Jewish rabbi in as the expert on Hebrew Israelites, which is no. Again, that's like bringing a Catholic priest to talk about Orthodox Judaism. I mean, come on. But anyway, this is not an attack on Jewish folks. I'm just saying, why are they doing this? This is something to think about. But let's read on. He says, Rabbi John Adlan said he's horrified at the allegation and is concerned because of the confusion over the group's religious identity. He noted that a story published by JTA, oh man, this alphabet soup is killing me, a major Jewish news service described McKinley student as being Jewish. Okay, yeah, he's not Jewish. First of all, let me say that what was done to this kid against his will and against his beliefs is abhorrent, right? If a child says he doesn't eat pork, he shouldn't be forced to do so. Okay. So, but here's my point, because I'm not going to read all of this. Why are they bringing in a Jewish rabbi to explain Hebrew Israelites? Why not go to the elders of that church that the boy belongs to? All right, let's take a look at this. Skipping down a little bit, it says, more on the Hebrew Israelites and their beliefs. The Reverend Monica A. Coleman, a theologian and professor of Africana Studies at the University of Delaware, says Hebrew Israelites do not consider themselves to be Jewish. Black Hebrew Israelites consider themselves Jews. I also consider them to be a black religion bearing many of the markers of African American spirituality, she said. Okay. You notice something here? This article, I'm going to say it over and over again. They're still not asking any Hebrew Israelite what their whole thing is all about. They've asked a Jewish rabbi, and they've asked a woman of African studies, a reverend, right? It's interesting how they're not asking any black man about the Hebrew Israelites. Again, man, I'm listening to Kwame Brown really has opened my eyes to a lot of how the black man is being disrespected. It's amazing to me. This whole Hebrew Israelite thing is being disrespected. Again, this coach, even by other black folks, and it really shouldn't be called, again, black Hebrew Israelite. It's just Hebrew Israelite, because it's a Bible-based practice, and anybody can do it. Right, you don't have to be black. All right. But let's wrap this up. I just find this, but what am I trying to say here? I find this just really interesting to think about. Why they're not even asking, the leaders of these black or these Hebrew Israelite organizations. Let's look at one last thing in this article. Okay. So the article continues with this. It says, as with virtually all religions, the Black Hebrew Israelite movement has a fringe element of extremists who are known to take to the streets to express their hatreds of white Jews, and LGBTQ people, while others preach that only people from the 12 tribes will be allowed to enter into heaven. Okay. The Bible doesn't say any of that, by the way. So, yeah, this article is right about that. There are some extremists and some very angry Israelites out there. However, this young man was not part of those groups. He was part of the Gathering of Christ Church. You can find them on gatheringofchrist.org. Okay, who do not teach hatreds of white Jews, LGBTQ people, okay, or that only members of the 12 tribes will be allowed to enter into heaven. Okay, and I feel that's very important to say. And why is this article going there? Right? Again, would they talk about, if this was a Jewish boy or a Catholic boy, would they talk about the fringe, racist elements of Jewish people and Catholic people? I don't think so. Oh, and if this was an LGBTQ boy that was being bullied, or a female, good chance that this story would be, they wouldn't add a lot of this stuff. This story, it'd be a totally different thing. I mean, if it was a woman or an LGBTQ boy, they might have totally hailed them as heroes and as strong. Just saying. And again, I'm not attacking anybody here. I'm just saying. All right. And then it goes on to say, in 2019, two armed extremists targeted a kosher grocery store in Bayonne, New Jersey, killing 3 people, including a police officer. The shooters also died. Okay, I've researched that incident. And those 2 armed extremists were not... they were not extremists. They just wanted to rob the store. Okay? They had nothing against kosher or Jewish people. It had nothing to do with it. Had nothing to do with Hebrew Israelitism. Okay? So let's round this up because it's getting late. It's a half an hour. I just wanted to point this out. There's something, and you guys really, if you haven't heard about Hebrew Israelites and the growing phenomenon and people waking up to this Hebrew Israelite thing, you might want to look into it. Just to be aware of it and be careful of your initial judgments, right? It seems to be that the media is trying to make Hebrew Israelites look bad. No, they're not just, it doesn't seem like they are. So, I'm just wondering why that is. So, and I thought I would present it to you. And definitely check out those 2 groups as a start, right? Gathering of Christ Church, gatheringofchrist.org, and then Straightway Ministries with Pastor Dowell. You can find them on YouTube, right? And it might, if it might open your eyes and about what the Israelites are all about, and especially the ones that follow Christ to a T. Okay, and I know that GOCC, one description that they give themselves is that they're pre-Constantine Christians, meaning before the Emperor Constantine changed. For example, in 300 AD, if you didn't know this, he changed at the Council of Nicaea the day of worship from Saturday to Sunday, right? So I know that members of GOCC will sometimes call themselves pre-Constantine Christians, meaning they follow, they're the original Christians. They follow what the original Christians were doing. So that's just something else, you might want to look into if you are so inclined. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Hey, thanks for sticking around. Press that like button, subscribe. And this is your humble servant, Mr. Smith, and we will see you on the next one, and have a blessed day.